Hey everybody, this is We Hate It here. Welcome to the first episode of our new review series called Why It Sucks. Today I'm with Caleb and Ronnie, where we're talking about Horizon Zero Dawn. And first up on the list here is combat.
So on the combat of this game, as the one who's played the game, when we played it on stream, the bow, which is supposed to be the primary form of combat in this game, tends to be a little bit stale and somewhat unintuitive as well. It's just draw back, shoot, draw back, shoot. Also, with a lot of these enemies, their attacks tend to move faster than you can even draw back the bow, making the bow basically be relegated to a secondary weapon. Yeah, there, see, that's
ridiculous.
Like how long it took for him to draw back that bow. Because everything has so much health compared to your actual arrows and I was even using the precision arrows, which are supposed to do more damage. So
right.
It basically relegated the primary weapon to secondary, and the most fun way to do combat was with the secondary weapon, which was harder to get any sort of upgrades slash improvements for. And other thoughts?
Oh yeah, I mean, of course, I'm gonna hop in here. I'm thinking in terms of combat, the sneaking. Okay, right, you can't do anything but sneak, because if you do anything else, yeah, I mean, you're probably screwed. I mean, a lot of times the sneaking is kind of the only thing that's available to do in this game, and I mean, they prioritize that, but I mean, I want to do different forms of gameplay. I want to try different things, and if sneaking is not your thing, I mean, you pretty much just can't play this game at the end of the day. I mean, it becomes more annoying and, you know, monotonous and just problematic. Not something you ever want to do.
Yeah, I can hop in, add in. I actually noticed, I know when we had played this before, it seemed like upgrades after you got to some point, you couldn't like go back and get something, like an upgrade that you missed past a certain point, unless you had to like actively try to break the game to get it. It just made it a really bad time. I mean, I never like to actively break a game. It's fun sometimes, but not when it's like trying to get something that I missed. It wasn't fun. It was like an hour of my life that I'll never get back, honestly. Pretty much all I got with it.
Right. Like they want to, I mean, like you just think make the game more accessible, right? I mean, like why block out something where I could get a core component in the game that I would need to upgrade or, you know, whatever.
Right.
Like why would I want to go back?
Yeah, if it was something small, it wouldn't be a big deal. But it's like, no, like I might actually kind of need this at some point. So don't make it so hard to go back after I pass, like right after it. It wasn't even that long after it that we'd missed it.
Literally the intro of the game. If you leave the intro part of the game and try to go back for a specific battery that you need to get a better armor, you literally just can't until practically near the end of the game.
You beat the game, right? I mean, you have to beat the game to go back there. I'm
exactly.
Pretty sure, unless you cheat, like you didn't cheat, you broke the game.
In fact, in our stream, we did have that happen to us, and we had to climb the mountains over top and find a very specific pixel that allowed us to fall back into the zone to get the better armor.
Oh, it was horrible.
It was terrible.
It was pretty bad.
The only other thing I think, like I said, the only gripe I have with the combat here is, I mean, it's the same thing through the whole game. I mean, it never once you get bow and spear, that's it.
That's pretty much it. They have some other things like this, the caster and like the traps and such. But for the most part, the entire game, the combat, you can get some upgrades for the bows, and there's kind of like other elemental things. But for the most part, if you don't want to psychoanalyze your game, it is basically the same combat throughout the entire game.
And I'm not saying, because like, I mean, you can get guns and such, but those aren't main weapons. They're just ones you pick up. So in conclusion, for the combat category, I'm going to ask some opinions here, whether you guys think it passes or it sucks. Ronnie?
Sucks very, very bad.
Okay, Caleb?
It sucks.
Yeah, I'm going to go with it's a sucks. That's 3 sucks.
Oh, there it is.
All right, on to the next category.
So movement in this game is not great. I'm not a fan of it myself. I mean, you can't even summon a horse until the end of a skill tree, like until the end of a tree. Are you serious? Really? Why would you make it that far to get a freaking horse? What do you think, Evan? Any thoughts?
I mean, yeah, the horse thing, stupid. Not a fan. Pretty dumb. Why would you like you said? Why would you wait till the very? I mean, to me, it doesn't make much sense. I mean, like
right.
You know, it's a pretty necessary part of the game to move around and go place to place, especially open world games. But with that, I mean, even in this game, the movement itself, even the character walking or even on a horse, clunky. I mean, you clip through a lot of things. There is a lot of invisible walls. I mean, it's just a lot of problems. Yeah, movement just in general in this game is just not good. I mean, like I said, a lot of issues with it, like a lot of clipping, and honestly, a lot of magnetism. Like when you're attacking somebody, like with the spear or such, you will glide to them like on ice skates straight to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in bringing up the movement part, this is also talking back to our first category, where this is the part where we lost an item in the first starting area and we can't get back into it. So we're trying to like maneuver around the outside. Generally, you'd think with horses, you'd think, oh, that's something that I can use to get up into higher places because it can jump higher, stuff like that. Horse is basically only useful for getting across the map, and that's basically the only real reason to have a horse, which I get, understandable, kind of. It's made it so that you can actually move anywhere because, again, running speed, you don't want to be running all the way across an open world map. So yeah, the horse is nice for that. However, first of all, horse moves only like a couple times faster than your character, so it's not even like it's that much of a speed increase. And here you can see the horse is just, it doesn't have any sort of ability when it comes to up inclines and declines.
Yeah, I mean, like I've seen you get stuck on pebbles and such before. I mean, like literally,
Yeah.
like a little incline, you will get stuck or run into a tree. This thing, let me tell you, it do turn like a horse. It do turn like a horse.
I will say for the actual jumping and character movement when it's just in a small enclosed area, it is pretty satisfying to use and it's pretty easy to use. However, when I'm grabbing onto things and it's during the parkour segments, it's very much locked in. So like he was saying with the combat where you go to swipe at something with your spear, it sends you across the map to go hit something in the head. It does pretty much the same thing when it comes to in-game parkour. Whereas like this, first of all, you're basically the Skyrim horse rather than you having a Skyrim horse. You are the Skyrim horse.
At least Aloy got hops at the end of the day. The override system in the game, the whole mechanic, big deal, you know, that they made it, that you can do this. Pretty much a gimmick to me. I think it's virtually useless. I mean, besides getting a horse until you eventually summon one, so it becomes pretty much obsolete at that point, unless you just don't feel like fighting an enemy, I guess. You could really sneak up on them and get them. Like Caleb said, it's not even a big speed increase at the end of the day, and when you could just teleport to a lot of places anyways, I mean...
At the beginning of the game, where it's the most important, where you can't even use the auto teleport thing, it's just a tedious extra work to grab a horse to get somewhere and then get off the horse, and if you fast travel without the horse around you, you probably just lost that horse. So it's just a lot of extra work for no reason. They should have just had it so you could summon the horse from the beginning if you got one.
And that's a common problem I remember us running into at the beginning, right? Because not everything you hacked you could ride. You had to literally go out and find a rideable horse or a bison or whatever the hell you could ride. But it wasn't just like you had one always everywhere. You had to go find it and sneak up on it, because that was annoying too. You had to sneak up on it while it's in an open field and get it. That was the real problem too.
And one of the big draws, it felt like to me, for this game, like Evan was saying earlier, with the override ability, you could override with, like, especially once you complete like the bunker things, you could override the really huge monsters like the T-Rex and stuff. And that's even in one of our videos as we do that. The problem is that they're sequestered to specific areas of the map and they do not leave even if you override them. So it basically makes that ability, like he was saying, obsolete. There's no point in overriding something that's not going to come help you fight. You might as well just kill it and get the XP.
Literally tethered to a certain point. It was like in a cage, and like you couldn't even tell it to go somewhere. It would just walk in its regular path, but this now won't hurt you. Cool. That's fun. In conclusion, we're going to go ahead and see everybody's opinions on movement. First, we can go with Caleb. What do you think?
It sucks.
All right. Ronnie?
It sucks, and life advice is to be a Skyrim horse, not a Horizon horse.
My opinion, it sucks. I mean, this is just, movement, like I said, it's just terrible all around. I don't think there's a single quality in it.
All right, and on to the next category.
Okay, so in terms of graphics, actually, I don't have too much of a gripe with this. I think in the time it came out and, the way it looks being open world, I mean, it's not gonna be perfect, but in terms of being open world, and like I said, the year this came out, it actually looks pretty solid. I mean, it holds up even today. So, I mean, it pretty good, actually.
Yeah, I think with this game, the actual world itself looks pretty good. The grass and everything, in most parts, sometimes it can look a little bit wonky, but that's to be expected with an open world game. Probably one of my favorite parts about the game is actually the lighting. The lighting with the shadows and the dark and the fireflies and the different... the bright lights from the machinery and everything. It shows off the quality of the graphics in this game.
So I thought the graphics were really good. I was a big fan of them. I thought they were really good for like when the game released. A lot of the lighting was really beautiful. The different lighting effects with the moonlight, sunlight, and just the different kind of bright lights you see with the robots and everything. I thought it was a really awesome effects. They did really awesome colors, really bright. I really liked the graphics. I thought it was really good graphics for the game.
One of my favorite parts about the graphics in this is actually just the forest itself. Like, actually, I think a lot of this being overgrown, taken over this forest, it looks honestly almost lifelike. It's great. I mean, it feels like you're actually out there in it.
I also think that they did a really good job with the models and all the different robotic animals that you can find, all the different machine parts and connecting wires and everything. Like even just like that tall neck right there blocking the moonlight. Such well done lighting, like we've been saying, and just the movements look really well done, except obviously when you're riding the horse, but that's because it's player affected. And it's just the level of detail they put into those robots is pretty cool, and I was a big fan of that. And also there was one part where we snuck up on an alligator or robot crocodile, and just the level of intensity when you're swimming up to a robotic giant crocodile can kind of be felt, even though it's a game. It's pretty cool.
I mean, even with that, I think to continue off what you're saying, the amount of moving parts on each of the robots, it's kind of insane. It's pretty cool how many moving parts are on them, and how you can see each individual piece be moving, and like you said, with the lights being integrated and everything, it looks pretty cool.
One of the problems that the game did have graphically was in the dialogue sequences. You can kind of see it here. The characters just kind of stiff. They're kind of doll-like. They don't really have actual movement. Like their heads are moving side to side, but their body is stiff and rigid. And their eyes, you can't really tell in this picture, but the eyes don't really blink. We'll get more into that when we go into the dialogue section of this video. And then on top of the dialogue being a little bit weird, there's another part of the graphics that kind of was a little bit weird. It wasn't really graphics based. It might have just been character placement. But when you first enter this city here called the City of the Sun, there's some pretty strange character placement. And so here, this is what I'm talking about. Like, look at all the soldiers in this area. I get it. It's like a soldier town. It's like a base or whatever, but it's still a normal town. Where's the civilians? In the entrance of the city, there's literally only soldiers. So many soldiers, and most of them are in the same stance.
They just stand there on guard, guarding each other. That's all they do all day.
Yeah, I mean, they're literally all wearing the same armor, the same stances. I mean, they literally copied and pasted this picture of one soldier. Hey, look, finally 2 people. they copied and pasted this soldier, right? Like just a million times at this one city entrance.
And then we come into this market area, and there's basically none of them. Like, why are they all right at the front? You think there's not going to be some weird things happening in the middle of the city? Nah, it's just some weird character placement.
In conclusion, for graphics, what do you guys think? Get a couple opinions here. Ronnie, go ahead. What do you think of the graphics?
Graphics were actually really good. I like the graphics. I was a big fan of them. It was kind of weird with the character placement, like we talked about, but I was a fan of the visuals of it, even if some of it was a little copy and paste when you got into some more detailed with people areas.
So you giving that one a pass?
I'm gonna say it sucks, but not as bad as the other ones.
I'm actually gonna give them a pass. I think they're pretty good. I mean, obviously it's gonna be spotty in some parts, but again, it's an open world to an extent. They only go so far. I mean, you can only do so much at the end of the day. So I'm gonna give it a pass. Caleb, what do you think?
I'm gonna say I actually kind of agree. It's an open world game. For what open world games are most of the time, I would say it definitely passes for me.
Yeah, I mean, this game actually, I think also, I remember the time it came out, pushed the boundaries a little bit. It was a pretty big release title and everything, and it was a launch title for a PS4, I'm pretty sure. So it did a pretty good job. On to the next category.
All right, so for this one, we have got the story. It's got its interesting points. It's got some points that can kind of resonate with people. It can be good at times, but for the most part, it was just pretty unmemorable. Like even now, it's only been about 6 months to 8 months since we played this game. And I can only barely remember some very specific parts about the story. It's slow, especially at first when the entire introduction is about 3 to 5 hours on the first part of the game. And it seems a little bit like they focus too much on actually building out the world and the character, which I can understand, but to the point where it seems like the story was an afterthought.
Yeah, I remember nothing of this. As I'm watching this clip, I faintly remember what's happening, and I kind of understand, but it doesn't seem important. The story at no point seemed like the main focus of the game, or seemed like the game even that the developers even cared about putting it into the game. They were more focused on the visuals, which that's great. It's a beautiful game. I mean, it's breathtaking with some of the sights and everything with it, but the story, I feel like it lacked on that. They definitely paid for it with a zero interest story.
Yeah, I mean, most of the story itself, I mean, it's like you guys both said, I don't remember any of it really. I mean, like very few far between key parts. Like I don't even remember half of the enemies. A lot of them they're just there. I mean, they don't really do anything. They're just kind of there. Like at the end of this, everything to me feels like nothing's really happening, and there's just kind of one big point of interest, and that's just obviously to find out why the world is the way it is.
Honestly, that's kind of not even really it, which it should have been that.
I thought that was it.
It should have been, really. The main story is basically like you're trying to figure out basically why there's somebody attacking you for some reason, and you have like some faint hints at possibly a mom or whatever, and you're just trying to figure all that out. And in the process of that, you do find out like why the world is the way it is, but it's never really the focus of your character.
So it's like a side quest?
Basically, yeah.
The story, it's just not there. It really just isn't there.
We can bring up the side quests now. We had to do a couple of them because we had some little bit of scheduling errors, but we did some side quest stuff, and it was a lot of the quests were either like basic fetch quests, or they were the same things over and over again, repetitive stuff, which again, I get it. It's an open world game. There's not much they can really, well, there is a lot they could really do, but most of the time it was the same things, just in different skins.
I think what they did at the end of the day is they just kind of played it safe. I mean, they didn't want to do too much, I'm guessing, in terms of it, but I think they played it a little too safe, in my opinion, and they could have really branched out a little bit more.
Yeah, they really kept it one strat or nothing pretty much throughout the whole game, which made it a little uninteresting.
In conclusion, we're going to ask a couple opinions here. Caleb, what do you think?
It sucks.
Sucks. All right, Ronnie?
Sucks.
And myself, I'm going to go with, in terms of what we just reviewed over, not memorable, nothing. It's just not worth my time. They could have went cool with it, but it does suck.
All right, so how about the dialogue in this game? I wasn't a big fan of it. There wasn't much to it. I wasn't a big fan. Any thoughts, Caleb?
I think for the most part, like I was saying when we were talking about the world, or the world, it was just, it kind of felt lifeless. There was no real emotion behind the eyes. Like you can see even here, it's like, what is, like with it muted, what is even happening here? Like, what is his face? There are some slight
Right.
movements and there's some slight emoting, but it's just not there. There's no real emotion in it. And with what we were talking about earlier with the blinking, it's just, even in all these parts here, you could see, when do they blink? Are they going to blink? Are they going to twitch? Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's two words to explain the dialogue in this game. Boring, dead. Okay, because let me tell you, these people stare into your soul when they're talking. And then when they quote-unquote blink, it's like a half, like, it doesn't go fully down a lot of times. It just, like, stops halfway. And they barely, honestly, like, Aloy barely ever blinks. Specifically, her character, I almost never see her twitch or blink as she just stares at this person talking, and there's just not a lot of movement going on, like, to make them feel like they're real. You know what I mean? I mean, they look like just puppets on a stick.
She doesn't even look like she has eyelid. Don't even see like eyelids on it. It's just cut, like it's crop cut right there. That's where I end.
The actual voice acting, for the most part, it wasn't atrocious, but it definitely could have been better. It was kind of like they weren't really into it, and it was, some characters actually did feel like they were playing a character, but for the most part, it just kind of felt like they were reading off a script.
In conclusion, for this category, I'm gonna get more opinions from everybody here. Ronnie, go ahead. What are you thinking? Sucks or pass?
It sucks. Definitely it sucks. Could have definitely used more emotion, expression, something from the avatars, the characters.
So that's a solid sucks from you. Caleb,
suck.
what are you thinking?
It sucks. There's not really much I can add to that. It just sucks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm same way. I think it sucks. There's just nothing really redeeming about it. Like you said with the voice acting, it's okay, but a lot of times they just, like you said, don't feel into it. And I mean, and it doesn't help that the characters themselves, the avatars, are not emoting either, really. I mean, they look like this, they're like on a stick turning, and like they're doing the Pokemon turn right there. I mean, they're literally just, they stop, turn, and then go forward, type thing. It's just not it. So, in conclusion, that one sucks. So on to the next category. Okay, so the world. Actually, overall, I think pretty interesting. I mean, the whole idea of it being, like they had to revert back, but they're still using technology, and as you can see, there's still city elements overtaken by growth and trees, the land itself. It makes you want to learn more about it. It's actually interesting. Of course, you don't really learn that much about it, but you want to learn more. Like, you want to see why these ruins are here, why everything is the way it is.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting to see the take on kind of the post-apocalyptic, but not just the fall of civilization, but the rise of a new civilization, to kind of see the nature overgrown the tech with stuff like that. I thought that was actually really cool. Interesting to see. I don't know. That's kind of, I don't know, sci-fi stuff, I guess. I'm into that, but I like it.
I will say, continuing off of that, just the idea of this modern world that collapsed and a new society of humans had to build from that, and that's all they ever knew. Like, it wasn't like the like Mad Max or something, where they had a post-apocalyptic event and then everybody remembered what it was like before the fall, or had people who remembered before the fall. And so it was just like they were trying to create a society based on that back before the fall. But in this, it's not like that at all, because none of these people know anything about the original, the modern world. They just know what they see. So it's just like helicopters and cars and these broken street lamps and buildings that have been fallen. All they know is that somebody built them, but they don't know who, they don't know why, they don't know what they were used for, and they're building their own society off of what they know rather than what the humans from the modern era would have known.
So I mean, like in terms of like the world itself, like I think, like I said, it's pretty cool. I mean, like there's all these underground like labs and bunkers that you find that were from, you know, back when everything was modern and technologically advanced. Not saying they aren't still, because they still use technology, but more technologically advanced. And the only downfall, in my opinion, you know, since it is an open world, you know, there's a lot of fetch quests and such that don't do much for you in terms of this world. It's just not it.
And I hate fetch quests. Like, they're not bad if they're not, you know, very time consuming, but when you have open world, you're gonna have it, you know, being time consuming. So yeah, I wasn't a fan of the fetch quests in this game.
Right. So in conclusion, for the category for the world, you can get everybody's opinion here. Ronnie, go ahead. What are you thinking?
Fetch quests really irritated me, but it wasn't a huge aspect, I guess. So I'm gonna actually say it had an interesting world. I would give it a thumbs up on the world.
Giving it a pass?
Yep, I'm gonna pass it.
All right. Caleb, what are you thinking about the world?
I do think that they did a pretty good job of driving your interest up when it comes to the world and making you want to really find out what is going on in this world. So I'm going to give it a pass as well.
I'm also going to give it a pass. You guys pretty much covered everything I was going to say. Like I said, the fetch quests suck, is what it is. Open world, they're always going to have them. But I will also give this a pass. I think the world is pretty cool. On to the next category.
All right, so for the boss fights in this game, for the most part, they were pretty good. There was a little bit of, as you know, with games, especially open world games, sometimes they had the boss fight where it didn't really matter how you hit it or where you hit it. It was mostly about a thing that you had to time at the right time, a gimmick basically. But for the most part, they did a pretty good job of diversifying the boss fights in the game and making it different enough for it to be interesting and for you to want to find the boss fights.
Yeah, like I think the bosses themselves, they're pretty cool in design. I'm always a big fan of, you know, designs for monsters and bosses, so they're actually pretty cool. Like you said, the gimmicks though, some of them are a little gimmicky. Some of them just are a little gimmicky, and I've never really been a fan of those. You know, like you gotta wait for the boss to do something, or you gotta break open a thing to get into that thing. It's just not, I don't like it. And a lot of these bosses take no damage unless you hit their special weak points a lot of times, and that's kind of like my gripe with it. But I think they look cool, and I think they, you know, have cool attacks and patterns and such. So I don't hate it that much.
Oh yeah, as far as look, as far as, you know, if we're going off of detail, looks in terms of you know, big bosses and stuff like that, they definitely kill it. I think it's really cool. I'm a fan of it. But yeah, fighting them on the other hand, that's where it gets a little iffy, just because of the combat. You know, it's the same thing. You know, rinse, repeat, win. Not a lot not a lot of interesting changes to it. So beautiful in terms of like, you know, cinematic effect, but in, you know, actual gameplay, it's not that great.
Yeah, I think like the ability to take off piece by piece for them, like literally being able to take pieces off the enemy of the boss, is pretty cool.
I thought that was neat.
A lot of times doesn't really have an effect on what you're doing. It's just a nifty thing. I mean, yeah, I think if you break like a machine gun that they have on their body or something, then that gets rid of it. But like I said, at the end of the day, it doesn't really have an effect. It's just a fun little extra thing you can do.
One thing about the boss fights in this game is you better come in prepared, because otherwise you're screwed. I remember when we played this game, the final boss against the big, huge like tower thing, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember in that fight, I ran out of arrows. I don't remember how or why, but I was completely out, and my stick, the little stick staff thing, did barely any damage. So for these games, it's the games where you have to collect stuff. The idea of having to go around and collecting materials to make it so you can even fight things, kind of annoying to me. And as a boss fight is where you're going to use most of those, I think it applies here. And like I said, with the final boss, when we fought it in this game, I ran out of all that stuff, and I had to run around constantly. It took multiple tries, because by the time you get to the boss fight, you can't just go out and look for materials. You're locked in. So it was basically lose-lose scenario, and it just took way too much time, and it shouldn't have been a problem in the first place.
Yeah, that's the main problem with these games like this, is collecting stuff. It's just annoying. I mean, you don't like doing it. That's again another problem with open worlds. They always give you a bunch of useless shit to collect, and then some of it you actually need. Unfortunately, I mean, like some of it you do need, like you saying, running out of arrows, which, you know, are a well-designed boss. You would, in fact, get them restocked. There would be an area to get them back up, or something you could break to get more, or just something to keep getting them. In conclusion, Gonna get a couple opinions here. What are we thinking, guys? Caleb, go ahead.
For the most part, they look cool, but when it comes to actually fighting repetitively and unevolving, and yeah, the fact that you need to collect arrows enough to be able to even complete the fight, it's gonna have to be it sucks for me.
All right, Ronnie?
I mean, as far as looks great, you know, but as far as playing it, not a fan. It's a no for me, dog. Big, it sucks.
No, and for me, I'm also actually I was thinking about giving it like a kind of suck, but I'm thinking I'm just like just designs don't save it. I mean, just the look of the boss doesn't save it. The gimmicks and, you know, having to collect such to play the boss and not actually giving you the material in the fight. I'm going to go ahead and give it a, it sucks. Okay, so in conclusion, we have talked a lot about this. We went over multiple categories of the game. So now, of course, there's always that end point where we have to go over the total rating of the game, all in all. So we've had a total through each categories. We got 4 sucks and only 2 passing. Not solid odds. So here at We Hate It Here, we have our own rating system called the hate level. Now, this is going to be the higher the number, the more we hate the game. So we're going to look at it here and then give it our hate level. Okay, so how our hate level system here works is a 10 is probably the worst game ever made, and 1 will be the best. So we're going to look at it here, and I think we're looking at giving this a 7.5 out of 10. You know, there's a couple redeeming qualities, but they are not enough to save this game from being as bad as it is. Caleb, any thoughts?
All right, I just would like to say before we finish up this one here is I'd like everyone to remember who's watching or anybody who's typing out in the comments, this is entirely our personal opinions, and if you like this game, that is perfectly fine. It's very much a subjective viewpoint, and it's perfectly fine if people enjoy the game. This is just how we feel about it.
So that is it. Thank you guys for stopping by. I hope to see you next time. We'll be doing this every week. So stop on in, give us a subscribe, check out our Twitch channel, and we'll see you next time.
Bye!
Bye.